I actually found out some new information recently that really kind of shocked me. So, in the past couple of years, I've seen Jonathan Frakes either reference his time hosting Beyond Belief or actual pictures of him on the set of Beyond Belief. And I've always wondered, oh my God, are they doing a revival? What's going on? But we never heard anything. That turns out because Germany is getting new Beyond Belief episodes. So they got one episode last year around this time. And as of today's recording, the 30th, they're getting two more on some network out there. And I gotta say, I'm kind of jealous. What's up, guys? This is Courtney, one half of the Deconstruction here, and I'm bringing you another analysis video of Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction. Today, we're looking at Season 2, Episode 11. This is the Disasters special. Throughout its run, Beyond Belief had about 3 or 4 specials, whether it was the Friday the 13th, Touch of Evil. Those are 2 that I've already gone over. I randomly decided what episode I wanted to watch because I recognized some of the titles from the story, and I automatically remembered what they were about. 2 stories out of the 5 in this episode that are presented as true. So I'm only going to be talking about those, but there are some other things in the fictional stories that I want to speak on as well. Let's get into it. First true story, I should say, is The Scoop. It's based in 1883, and it's about a reporter who isn't getting any stories coming through. Now, this is when they're using Morse code or whatever to actually get the reports, I guess. And everybody else is going crazy with the amount of stories that they're getting through with their little thing and they're typing up. He's not getting anything, so he decides to stay late one night and see if anything comes through later on. Nothing comes through. He ends up taking a nap real quick. Has a dream about a volcano erupting on this small island. So he wakes up and he says, all right, I'm going to type this up. Maybe I can sell it as a short story. And I forget what the name of the island is called. I think it's Propyla or Propyle or something like that.
Prolape.
So he works on it, types it up, leaves it in his typewriter because that's what they did. So the next morning, a kid comes through, sweeps up, or I shouldn't say sweep, but he picks up all the stories that are in the typewriters in the I guess newsroom or whatever. They run it as a story, so nobody else has had this story, so they run it as this big scoop and they're celebrating. He comes in the next morning and they're talking about, hey, that was a great scoop that you got. We're the first ones that got it, so it's ours. And he's like, hey, that wasn't a story, that was a dream that I had that I typed up as a short story to sell. You're gonna have to print a retraction for that. The boss was really upset about that. Ended up deciding, okay, let me type up the retraction and get it sent off. He calls in the kid that takes the stories and takes that type of stuff to go get sent out. And the kid takes it and then gives him a little report. He reads it and he calls back the retraction before the kid can actually get it sent off, because the report that he gave him is about volcanic activity off of off of this island. So he brings it back, gives him another report, and it's basically the same thing, and they keep coming through. So he calls the guy into his office later on that day and tells him, your dream turned out to be true. There's been volcanic activity reported right off the coast of the Sunda Straits, I think it's called, and people are reporting tidal waves and all types of weather, and it's off this island called Krakatoa. And the guy's I don't understand. And he says the native name that it's called is Propyla, or whatever the name of it was in his dream. This is presented as true because it's based on the volcanic eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. Now, I don't believe that a reporter called the scoop the day before it happened or anything like that, but it's very obvious what the true portion of the story is, because it's actually based on an actual volcanic eruption. As far as the acting is concerned, because like I said before in my other Beyond Belief videos, I'm not trying to really pinpoint what might be the actual true portion of the story is, because there's plenty of other content creators that have done that before. The acting in this segment was okay. I think the boss, the manager or editor, whatever his title is, I think he was a little over the top. But I think overall they did a pretty good job of presenting it as 1883, how everything worked, I guess, when it came to reporting news for paper. Now, the next story is Angel on Board. It's about a woman who's going to Tahiti, and she's flying there, or flying into, I think, somewhere in Hawaii, and then flying to Tahiti. But she gets on the plane, she goes to her seat. Flight attendant tells her she's been upgraded to first class. So she's like, nobody told me that when I was boarding, but okay, I'll take it. So she goes to her first class seat, sits by the window. Flight attendant tells her, hey, your seat is the aisle seat. Now, one of the funny things about this is that she was like, oh, okay, I wasn't aware. She says, no problem, sits in the aisle seat. The guy that comes in sits next to her. He asks her, hey, if you prefer this seat, we can switch. And then she's kind of like, oh, looking up, and then catches a glimpse of the flight attendant, who gives her like this, bitch, we don't play that here kind of look, which I just thought was hilarious. But she's like, oh, no, I'm fine, I'm good. After that, weird stuff starts happening to her. So one of the captains comes by, asks her how how is she enjoying the flight. Make sure you keep your seatbelt buckled, because you never know when we run into any turbulence. She says mentions that to the guy next to her. Oh, that was nice. The guy doesn't know what she's talking about. He didn't see the captain. I can't remember. At some point, she gets really, really nervous about the stuff that's happening on the plane. Other passengers start looking at her and smiling at her as if they can tell that she's really nervous right now. So she gets up, kind of starts freaking out, goes to the bathroom, splashes some water on her face, right? Here's an announcement of, hey, go get back to your seat right now. And again, she asked the guy, hey, was that, the captain, referencing that we're about to land early? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't hear an announcement. So she's like, okay. And then here's another thing about buckle up your seatbelts or something like that. His seatbelt wasn't buckled up, but there's a voiceover where she says, oh, well, he's probably tired of hearing me go off on these crazy, tangents or whatever like that. So I didn't tell him about buckling up his seatbelt. A few seconds after that, like a hole blows open in the side of the plane, and he gets sucked out. And apparently, like the 4 rows in front of her get sucked out as well. So yeah, that's presented as true. And afterwards, Jonathan Frakes says that the same thing happened to other people on the flight as well. So that's presented as true as well. And I'm pretty sure I've read about at least one flight where like a piece of the fuselage broke off, and there was some type of damage, and a hole basically was blown out of the plane, and there were like people sucked out of it. So I'm not surprised that this is a true story. Now, did a woman, hear all of these, get all these signs to stay in the proper place and, where she would be safe? Probably not, but I'm positive I've read something about this happening to at least one previous flight. So that doesn't surprise me. The acting in this one I liked because it was overall casual. It seemed very, very natural. Besides like the weirdness of, people kind of looking at her, smiling, the flight attendant looking at her the way that she did, things like that. So overall, I like the acting in this segment as well. So those are the 2 true segments of this particular episode. Now, really, really quickly going over some of the fictional segments. The first story is Bon Voyage, and it's about a couple telling a group of friends that they missed the previous cruise or ship trip that they were taking because their wedding rings fused together, and by the time they got cut apart, they had missed their their opportunity to get on the ship. So it turns out that that ship was something that ended up like, it was some type of ship that ended up getting bombed like 6 days later or something like that. The irony, this is kind of like a Twilight Zone thing. The irony of that is that, their friends that they're telling the story to, they're like, oh, well, toast to the luckiest people, in the world, our best friends. They escaped that just to get on the Hindenburg, which, if you don't know, the Hindenburg was like a blimp that burst into flames. You would think, if you didn't look it up, you would think that everybody died, especially with the footage that was caught of it bursting into flames. But less than half the people died. I think total, it was like 35 people that were flying in it and one person on the ground. But I think passengers and crew, it was like 90 people total. So less than half of the actual passengers and crew passed away. But the crazier thing about this segment is that they use actual footage. They use the actual footage from the Hindenburg explosion. And I mean, like, oh, the humanity, like, all that stuff as well.
Again, as the plane had slacked up a little bit, it burst into flames. Get this, Scotty. It's flames, and it's flames. Well, this is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. It's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. It's smoke and it's flames now. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it. I told you, I can't talk. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen.
So the second story is The Man in the Model T. It's about this mom and this daughter going to this swap meet, try to sell some things. They're kind of struggling, and the daughter is going to go off to school soon, but she's debating on whether or not she should actually go because it's going to be really difficult to pay for. The mom wants her to go to college, and they're just like, look, let's just see what we can sell, and then we'll worry about that later. They don't sell anything. This man in this Model T car comes through, and he has like a bunch of stuff to sell. People come up to him, ask him, oh, how much for this, how much for that? And he says, how much money do you have? How much you got? That's the thing. He keeps asking everybody how much you got. And in the voiceover by the mom, apparently nobody bought anything from him because they were really, really offended by the fact that he kept asking them how much you got. So after she says that, everybody was really, really offended by him asking that, we see the daughter go over to his truck, or the back end of it, and looking at this lamp. He says, you like that lamp, huh? And she's like, oh yeah, but how much will a lamp like that even cost? Because it looks like a pretty fancy, I don't want to say it looks super, super fancy, but it looks like a artsy, pretty fancy lamp. And he asks her, well, how much do you got? And she's like, oh no, I can't buy this. And he's like, how much do you got? She's like, $3. He's like, sold. And he ends up leaving and leaves this big chest behind with him. And she says, oh, you left I forget the guy's name. He has some weird ass name. But she says, oh, hey, you left your chest. And he's like, no, that's yours. It comes with the lamp. Her mom notices that it's from the Titanic because it has a sticker on it. They open it up. They looking through everything. It's like jewelry in there. Oh, like these really nice plates and things like that. And she sees a flask, and it has the name of her great grandfather. Now, when I think when she said that, she's referring to her daughter, because it is another voiceover. She was basically saying, hey, her great grandfather was a victim of the Titanic, and his name was, whatever. I think the last name was Jurgens or something like that. And that's the same name on the flask. So this trunk belongs to her great grandfather. So again, in a voiceover, they end up selling a bunch of the stuff that's because it's really, really valuable, and they end up using that money to pay her way through college. That's that story. But again, it's false. I just thought it was interesting with the guy that was super eccentric. I also thought it was hilarious when they first got to the swap meet. There was this one dude that came up to the table and basically said, looks like you're gonna have a bad day. Something to that effect. And I'm like,
can I help you?
All you got here is just a bunch of regular junk.
I don't see anything special in the whole lot. You want to sell that old station wagon? I could use something to haul my stuff in.
No thanks. We needed to haul our stuff.
Have it your way. But I wouldn't count on having a big day.
Don't do that. The last story of the episode is called Buenos Dias. It's about tornado ripping through the city. This little girl is trapped in some rubble. Firefighters start digging her out to actually get her out. She's trapped in the basement and they start digging to get her out. The one funny thing, so she ends up like fading and passing out. But here's her grandfather basically called to her because I guess some of her favorite words are Buenos Dias. And so whatever her name is, I'm going to just use Lucy for the sake of me running this back. It's like, Buenos Dias, Lucy. Buenos Dias, Lucy. I'm probably way off with the name, but whatever.
Buenos dias, Luisa. Buenos dias, Luisa. Buenos.
She ends up hearing that and it keeps her alive long enough for the firefighters to get her out. Now, her grandfather already passed away in the tornado. They found the firefighter in the voiceover says they found his body like a day or two ago or something like that. The question becomes, like, who was it that they heard? Because 2 firefighters heard this Buenos Dias Lucy being said to her as well. So it turns out that it's her grandfather's parrot that kind of kept her alive. The only thing that I really have to say about this episode is that the little girl's voice doesn't sound natural. I don't know if that's her real voice. Obviously, I don't know if they just got somebody to come in and do some ADR. It just doesn't sound natural to me.
Help me, please. I am hungry. I am so tired.
I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, that's my look at episode 11 of season 2 of Beyond Belief, guys, the disasters special. Hope you guys enjoyed. I realized that I hadn't planned to do anything for Halloween this year for the channel, so I figured I might as well go ahead and get this out of the way. And as always, guys, I appreciate the support, whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 100 views. Check out my other Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction analysis videos on the channel, and check out the other videos in general, and I'll get up with you guys later. I also love the fact that Jonathan Frakes has way too much fun with the dad jokes, like the silly puns when transitioning into segments. He had way too much fun with that.
Is this cruel joke based on an actual event, or have we ignited an explosion of lies?